I manage a pharmacy in Zurich. And last December, an American woman pushed through the door at 9 p.m. on Christmas Eve with this frantic energy. She started grabbing cold medicine and bandages, then marched to the counter. "I need to pay now. I have dinner in 30 minutes, she announced. I told her we'd been closed since 2 p.m. She stared at me like I'd said the earth was flat. But it's not even Christmas yet. In America, pharmacies stay open until at least 10 p.m. on Christmas Eve. That's when people do their last-minute shopping because everyone's working until the evening anyway. I explained that in Switzerland. Christmas Eve is treated like the holiday itself. She shook her head slowly. So you're telling me an entire country just decides business doesn't matter for 3 straight days? What if someone has an emergency? I gestured to the sign listing emergency pharmacies. She photographed it with her phone, muttering something about how American efficiency would never allow this kind of shutdown. The week before, an American couple had approached me on the street asking where the 24-hour convenience store was. I directed them to the train station, the only place open past 8 p.m. The woman laughed. "You're joking. Just the train station?" Her husband nodded knowingly. This is why America leads in productivity. We don't just stop living because the calendar says it's a holiday. I watched them walk away, already arguing about whether to take a train just to buy toothpaste. 2 days before that, another American had asked me why the grocery store closed at 4 p.m. on December 24th. "It's not even dark yet," he'd said, as though daylight determined business hours. I'd explained it was so employees could spend the evening with family. He'd looked genuinely confused. "But don't people want to make overtime pay during the holidays? That's when you can charge premium prices. This happens every winter." Americans arrive expecting Europe to function like an airport terminal, humming along regardless of the date. Then Christmas, or New Year's, or Easter arrives. And they're standing on an empty street at noon, surrounded by shuttered windows. Wondering if they've stumbled into some kind of Swiss apocalypse, my cousin works the reception desk at a hotel in Vienna. And last August, an American businessman checked in on a Sunday evening. He needed to print boarding passes and find an office supply store for presentation materials. My cousin explained that almost everything was closed on Sundays. The man drummed his fingers on the desk. "Okay, but I need a specific adapter and some poster board. Where's the nearest Target or Walmart?" My cousin said those didn't exist here, and even if they did, they'd be closed. The American leaned in. "Listen, I have a major pitch tomorrow. Surely there's somewhere open. This is a capital city." My cousin directed him to the small shop inside the train station, open until 8 p.m. The man shook his head in disbelief. "So an entire economy just shuts down once a week? That's millions in lost revenue. In the States, Sunday is actually our busiest retail day because people have time off work." He kept glancing at his phone as if Google would reveal some hidden 24-hour mall. When he left for the train station, he told my cousin this would never happen in America because American consumers wouldn't tolerate it. The next morning, he asked my cousin how Austria stays financially competitive with such limited hours. My cousin mentioned that Austrians prioritize rest over round-the-clock commerce. The man wrote something in his notepad, and I imagine it was not complimentary. I work as a tour guide in Copenhagen. And one Saturday in May, an American woman asked what time the shops reopened after the Ascension Day holiday on Thursday. I explained they'd reopen Friday morning. She blinked twice. "Wait, Ascension Day is a real holiday where things close?" I confirmed it was. She pulled out her phone and started typing. "In the US, we have federal holidays, but most stores stay open because, capitalism. People still need stuff." I mentioned that Danes valued the tradition of giving workers time off for religious and cultural observances. She tilted her head. "But most people aren't even religious anymore, right? So why keep the holiday?" I explained it's about preserving shared time for families and communities. She nodded slowly, clearly unconvinced. "That's nice in theory, but it sounds economically inefficient. I mean, Denmark has high taxes, so maybe that's how you afford to just shut everything down randomly." Walked away before I could respond. Already complaining to her husband about how they'd have to adjust their shopping schedule? That evening, she approached me again. I checked online, and apparently there are like 13 public holidays here. 13. We barely have 10 federal holidays in the US, and again, most businesses ignore them. She said it like she'd uncovered a conspiracy. My brother runs a guest house in rural Bavaria. And last Easter, an American family arrived on Good Friday afternoon. They'd driven for hours and wanted to grab groceries before settling in. My brother informed them that stores had closed at 2 p.m. and wouldn't reopen until Tuesday. The father looked at him, then at his wife, then back at my brother. That's 4 days. You're saying we can't buy food for 4 days? My brother suggested the gas station 6 kilometers away, which sold basics. The father exhaled sharply. A gas station. For a family of 5. Got it. He paused. In America, even on Thanksgiving, which is basically our biggest family holiday, most grocery stores are open at least part of the day, and definitely by Friday for Black Friday shopping. The whole country doesn't just freeze. My brother explained that Germans consider Easter sacred, not commercial. The father muttered something about how his grandfather fought in World War II so Europeans could have freedom. Apparently they chose the freedom to close grocery stores. His wife shushed him. That evening, the father asked my brother if there was any historical reason for such strict closures. My brother mentioned centuries of Christian tradition and labor laws protecting workers. The father nodded thoughtfully, then said, "In the US, we protect workers with paychecks. Seems more practical. I run a bike rental shop in Amsterdam, and one Monday in July, an American college student came in annoyed. She'd tried to visit 3 museums on Sunday, and all were closed for a staff holiday. I thought museums were supposed to be open on weekends," she said, hands on hips. I explained that many Dutch institutions close Mondays or rotate closure days. She frowned. "That doesn't make sense. Weekends are when tourists have time to visit." I pointed out that museum staff also deserve weekends. She rolled her eyes. "In America, museums are open 7 days a week in most cities. They rotate staff schedules so no one works every weekend. It's called modern management." I mentioned that the Netherlands values workers' rights to predictable time off. She crossed her arms. "Okay, but I paid for a 3-day trip, and now I've lost a whole day. That's bad customer service." I suggested she'd plan around closures next time. She scoffed. Or maybe Europe could join the 21st century and realize tourists don't follow a schedule. Before leaving, she turned back. "I read online that Europeans think Americans work too much. But at least we don't shut down our entire cultural infrastructure because it's Monday." She pedaled away. And I heard her telling her friend that Dutch labor laws were why Europe's economy lagged behind America's. I work at a butcher shop in Lyon. And last Christmas week, an American man walked in on December 23rd at 5 p.m. asking for a turkey. I told him we were sold out and closing in 15 minutes for the holiday. He looked around at the empty cases. "Closing for how long?" I said we'd reopen December 27th. He stared at me. "For days. You're closed for 4 entire days during the peak holiday season?" I nodded. He shook his head. "In America, this is when butchers make their money. People are cooking all week. You'd stay open late Christmas Eve, close Christmas Day, then reopen December 26th for leftovers and returns." I explained that French workers take Christmas seriously as family time. He cut me off. "Right, but somebody would work. You'd pay them double time, triple time even. There's always someone willing to work holidays for the right price." I mentioned that in France, it's actually illegal to require Sunday or holiday work in most industries. He laughed. "Illegal to work? That's the most European thing I've ever heard." Then he asked where the nearest open butcher was. I said probably none until the 27th. He pulled out his phone, searching frantically. "This is insane. What do people eat?" I suggested they plan ahead. He muttered, "In America, the free market solves this. Someone would open a competing butcher and make a fortune off you guys taking 4 days off." My sister waits tables in Stockholm. And last midsummer, an American tourist asked why the restaurant closed at 6 p.m. on Midsummer Eve. My sister explained it was Sweden's second biggest holiday after Christmas. The woman wrinkled her nose. "Midsummer. That's a real thing?" My sister confirmed that Swedes celebrate the summer solstice with parties and family gatherings. The woman laughed. Okay, but that's tomorrow, right? Why close tonight? My sister clarified that Midsummer Eve is the main celebration, like Christmas Eve. The woman's smile faded. So restaurants just shut down when people want to eat out? My sister explained that Swedes eat at home or at private parties during midsummer. The woman shook her head. In the US, if there's a holiday, restaurants stay open because that's when people go out. 4th of July, Memorial Day. Labor Day, those are huge for the service industry. My sister mentioned that Swedish workers prefer celebrating with their own families. The woman's companion, also American, chimed in. That's sort of backwards, isn't it? Restaurants make money when people don't want to cook. My sister brought their check. The first woman left a large tip and said, I'm sorry you have to miss tomorrow because your bosses don't understand capitalism. My sister didn't have the energy to explain she'd requested the time off. I manage a cafe in Brussels. In one Easter Monday, an American student came in asking for breakfast. I explained we were closed for the holiday. She gestured at the unlocked door. But I'm standing inside. I apologized. I'd only opened the door to grab something I'd forgotten. She followed me in. Okay, but you're here. I'm here. I have cash. Just make me a coffee and a croissant. I repeated we were closed. She sighed dramatically. In America, if a business is technically accessible, you serve the customer. That's hospitality 101. I locked the door behind us as we left. She stopped on the sidewalk. You realize you just turned down money, right? Like actual money for 5 minutes of work? I explained that Belgian law requires holiday closures to protect workers. She typed something on her phone. I'm writing a blog post about this. Europeans act so superior about work-life balance, but then your laws literally prevent people from working, even when they want to. I started walking away. She called after me. In America, we trust individuals to make their own choices. I turned the corner, already exhausted. I own a taverna in Santorini. And last August 15th, an American couple arrived at 1 p.m. demanding lunch. I informed them we were closed for the Assumption of Mary. The husband squinted at me. The what? I explained it's a major Greek Orthodox holiday. The wife crossed her arms. We've been walking for an hour. Surely you can make an exception for tourists. I said no, my staff had the day off. The husband pulled out his wallet. I'll pay double. I shook my head. He raised his hands. Triple cash. No one has to know. I told him that would be illegal and disrespectful. His wife scoffed. Illegal to run your own business? That's communism. I corrected her, it's labor law. The husband leaned against the doorway. Here's the thing. In America, August is peak tourist season. You'd be insane to close. You'd hire extra staff, extend your hours, maximize profit. That's basic economics. I mentioned that Greeks value religious tradition over profit. The wife shook her head. That's why the Greek economy struggles. You turn away customers during your busiest month. They left to find food elsewhere. An hour later, they returned and asked if I knew any Greeks who disagreed with these backwards laws. I closed the shutters without answering. I worked the ticket counter at a train station in Zurich. When one New Year's Day morning, an American businessman rushed up asking about trains to Munich. I told him service was running on a holiday schedule with reduced frequency. He checked his watch. Reduced how much? I explained the next train was in 90 minutes instead of the usual 30. He slapped the counter. 90 minutes. It's 9 a.m. on a Tuesday? I clarified it was January 1st, a public holiday. He groaned. In America, trains run the same schedule every day because transportation doesn't stop for holidays. People have places to be. I mentioned that Swiss railway workers also deserve holidays. He pulled out his phone. I'm going to miss my meeting because Switzerland thinks train conductors need New Year's off. Unbelievable. Then he asked if there was a faster option. I suggested a taxi, but those were expensive and hard to find on holidays. He stared at me. So an entire country just decides that one day a year, efficiency doesn't matter? I stayed quiet. He continued, You know what happens in America? Essential services stay essential. We don't just shut down infrastructure. printed his ticket. As he walked away, he turned back. I bet this is why Swiss trains are so expensive. You're paying people to not work. My cousin is a park ranger in the Scottish Highlands. Last Christmas, an American family arrived at a visitor center expecting it to be open. My cousin happened to be there feeding the office cat. The father knocked on the glass. "Are you open?" My cousin mouth closed and pointed at the sign. The father knocked harder. My cousin opened the door. "We're closed for Christmas." The mother stepped forward. "But we drove 3 hours. Can't you just let us in for the exhibits?" My cousin explained that the center was unstaffed and locked down. The father crossed his arms. "In America, national parks are always open. They're public land. You can't just close nature." My cousin clarified the land was open, just not the buildings. The mother looked confused. "So we can walk around but not use the bathroom or buy anything?" My cousin nodded. The father scoffed. "That's half a park. In the US, we understand that tourists travel during holidays. That's literally the point of holidays." My cousin mentioned that Scottish workers also have families. The father shot back, "And American workers don't. We just staff appropriately." The mother pulled him toward the car. As they left, the father shouted, "This is why America invented capitalism." My cousin went back inside to finish feeding the cat. I drive a tour bus in Prague. And last Easter Monday, an American woman boarded asking why we weren't running the usual route. I explained we were operating a limited holiday schedule. She checked her ticket. "It doesn't say holiday schedule anywhere." I apologize for any confusion. She sat down heavily. In the US, tour companies know holidays are peak times. You'd add buses, not cut them. I mentioned that Czech drivers wanted Easter with their families. She rolled her eyes. "So hire drivers who don't celebrate Easter?" "That's what we do. Religious accommodation goes both ways." Started the engine. She called from her seat. I paid full price for a reduced tour. I explained the price was standard. She spent the rest of the ride typing on her phone. When we stopped, she told me she was filing a complaint with the tourism board. In America, we have customer protections against this kind of bait and switch. I handed her the tourism board's card. She walked away muttering about European incompetence. I run a taxi service in Oslo. And last Constitution Day, an American professor called requesting a pickup from the airport. I told him I had limited availability due to the holiday. He sighed into the phone. "I'll pay surge pricing, just get me someone." I explained most drivers had the day off for National Day celebrations. He paused. "Wait, taxi drivers get national holidays off in Norway?" I confirmed they did. He laughed. "That's adorable. In America, taxi and rideshare drivers work holidays because that's when demand peaks. It's literally the best money-making day." I mentioned that Norwegian labor standards prioritize workers' well-being. He interrupted. "Standards? Try incentives. Pay them double, and they'd work. That's how markets work." I offered him a slot 2 hours later. He accepted, but added, "You know what this is? This is why Norway's population is only 5 million. Your economy can't scale when everyone takes holidays off." I hung up and went back to watching the parade with my daughter. I work at a ski resort information desk in the Austrian Alps. And last January, an American woman approached me on New Year's Day afternoon. She wanted to know why half the restaurants on the mountain were closed. I explained it was a holiday. She gestured at the slopes, packed with skiers. "But the mountain's open. You're clearly operating. Why close the restaurants when you have customers?" I told her that many resort workers celebrate New Year's with family. She leaned on the counter. "In America, ski resorts know holidays are their busiest days. You staff up, not down. That's when you make your revenue for the year." I mentioned that Austrian law protects workers' holiday time. She shook her head slowly. "You're leaving money on the table because of a law that prevents people from working? That's just European." She walked away, and I heard her tell her companion that this explained why. America's economy was 3 times the size of the entire EU's. Maybe we do things differently here. Maybe Americans see holidays as peak business hours, while we see them as sacred pauses. Maybe they're right that we'd make more money staying open, Or maybe they're missing the point entirely. Either way, they'll keep arriving every December, every Easter, every random Tuesday Saints Day, shocked to find that yes, we really do close the shops. And no, we don't think that's strange at all. Next week, another family will knock on the pharmacy window at 9 p.m. on Christmas Eve. And I'll point at the sign listing emergency services. And they'll take a photo while talking about American exceptionalism. The cycle continues. We'll be closed. They'll be amazed. And somewhere, somehow, both countries will survive another holiday season